years of human occupation. My name is Will Tatum. I'm your Dutchess County Historian, and I'm just here to get you situated and warmed up before I turn the program over to BOCES, which is the real set of heroes here today. I'd like to begin by recognizing some friends here. First, Stephen Lassen, whose project this all was in terms of the concept. Members of the Lassen family, who are of course descendants of the Lassens, who were buried here and helped to start settlement in this part of Dutchess County. I'd like to recognize some of our elected officials, County Legislator Joey Capsini, and Mayor of Wappingers Falls, Joe Baisley.
Town of Poughkeepsie, you were
Oh, I'm sorry. My list was not updated. Also, one of the heads of BOCES, Principal Nick Millis, and of course, our major stars today, Tom Skeen and his students from the course that helped put these markers back in their place. So what we're really doing here today, the ceremony is all about a reinvestment in local history, and that's a difference between the past and history, which is the study and the remembrance thereof. The past is all around us here. It's mostly below ground, archaeologically, but it was real. There were real people who did real things on this site hundreds of years ago. History is the process by which we remember and study what those people did, who they were, and what it means for us today. And that's impossible if you don't have things like historical markers that remind people that there was a time before this was the Tri-municipal Sewage Plant. So Stephen will tell you all about the ins and outs of how this project began, but I just want to go ahead again and say thank you to these young men and to their instructor for putting all of this material back up where everyone can see it, both building those wooden frames and refreshing those metal signs that were put in back in the 80s. We know what we know about this area, as well as Bowden Park to our south and the quarry to our north, thanks to development work in the 1970s and 80s that included a lot of archaeological excavation. We still hold some of those artifacts, but this is an area truly deep in history. For thousands of years before the first European settlers arrived, this area was used by varying members of indigenous nations who would summer here, winter here, pass through, eventually some permanent settlements in the area. Then in the 1680s, the Lassen family came in and began what would become the permanent settlement of Dutchess County. So I would like to offer our elected officials an opportunity to provide us with some remarks if they're so interested. Legislator Cavazzini.
So no one wants to hear a politician talk too much, especially early in the morning, so I'll keep my remarks brief. But I'd like to echo the words of County Historian Will Tatum, that again, the preservation of our history and our past is most important. And what you, young men and women, have done here at this site to preserve our legacy, to preserve our history, is something that ought to be recognized and is appreciated by your community. This site here obviously serves a different purpose than it did hundreds of years ago, a very, very different purpose. But when folks do come down here, they will remember the past, and that's what our role as historians and our role as community leaders is, to allow people to reflect on what was here and remind them of our past as we continue to move forward. And today is also a somber day too, as we remember and recognize those who are buried here. And we're honored to have the family and the descendants of the Lassen family, the Lassens, here with us today. And with that, thank you so much for being here today as we recognize your ancestors as well. So with that, enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you so much for having me. And thank you folks for this great project.
Well, to reiterate what Joey had said, I want to thank the staff of BOCES, the Lassen family, for this project. I've known about this. I live in this neighborhood for over 40 years. When they were doing the original dig, I remember all the people coming to my business and discussing what was going on and how important it was to save the history that was down here and then becoming part of the Tri-Muni in 2003. To come in all the time and look at it and see the signs, and the signs are up, and you read and you look and you listen, and it's always something that when you talk to people, they don't really realize what went on in this area. You know, Governor Clinton's mansion was right up the street here. You know, half of his family is buried right in the Hamburg, you know, Lassen. Just this area is so deep in history, and all the big mansions that were here that are gone over near Tilcon and all the little areas that are there. But to look at something like this, and then look at the youth of today that people usually have nothing good to say about, they stepped forward. They took up, you know, this project on their own through BOCES, and BOCES worked with them. And knew that they even knew it was down here. I mean, nobody comes to Tri-municipal. It's not the most visited place to come see. It's hidden. We point it out all the time when I talk to all the people coming to my business. Yeah, you know, there are cemeteries here. There's one in Hamburg. There's actually one right in Tri-municipal. We have people come down. So to see that the youth of today is actually stepping up to the plate and doing something super positive. I want to thank all of you for what you did. This is absolutely phenomenal. And hopefully other people in BOCES will see what you've done and step up to the plate also and do other projects in other areas, because this is definitely a positive. I want to thank you all and thank the Lassen family for coming out today. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Now at this time, I am delighted to turn the stage over to Steve Lassen to take us through not only the project, but also the background to the site.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for coming. This is a wonderful morning, beautiful day. I'd like to introduce a few people that have come here to see this. In particular, my father, Peter Lassen, and my mother, Janice, my uncle, Rolf Lassen, my cousins, Sean Cohan and Brendan Cohan. So thank you guys for coming down and seeing this. So back in 2019, my father, my brother, and I went to visit my then 93-year-old great uncle James Lassen, who lived in Canada. He was our unofficial family historian. After that visit, we called each other quite frequently until his passing in 2021. We were always talking about people in our family tree as he told stories about our ancestors. I think he was grooming me to take over as family historian. Between his and my research, I discovered these burial grounds for which we could trace our lineage back to. Now, I grew up in Red Hook and knew my father's family were from New Hamburg and had moved and lived in Poughkeepsie, but I never knew how far back our family actually went in Dutchess County. 2 summers ago, I started seeking out headstones of my ancestors in cemeteries all around Dutchess and Ulster counties. This was one of my destinations. When I got here, I discovered time had caught up with this marker. I'll wait for the train. It was lying here next to the building, and the plaque was very faded, and the wood had deteriorated. I wanted to eventually bring my father here, but I didn't want him to see the marker like this. So I emailed the commission expressing my thoughts about restoring the markers. The other 2 markers were still standing, but they too were very tired. And Marty, the project manager here, got back to me with permission to explore this endeavor. I think he was thrilled at me wanting to do this and has been an integral part for making this restoration happen. I then thought this might be a good project for the students in the building trade class at my school. So I asked Tom Skeen, our building trade teacher who's here today, if he would come and look at it and meet with Marty. They both took on this project as if it was no big deal. Like, no problem, we can do this. So I was excited to realize that this could actually happen. Well, it actually is a big deal. Once it was done and installed last fall, I took pictures and started showing it off, particularly on social media and the local genealogy groups. I saw how much of an impact this restoration was to so many, particularly those who descend from the Lassens buried here. The outpouring of thanks and appreciation for doing this has been overwhelming, and it's only been made better by including our students. My father, a former educator himself, was thrilled that students would be involved in this, particularly high school students. He has a soft spot for them. He was a former high school principal. Therefore, it is important to thank those involved. I first need to thank Tom Skeen, our building trades instructor, and his current and former students who are not here with us but did work on this, including Gianna, who's here today, for working on this project and helping fabricate these new signs. Students, your involvement in participating in projects like these, though they may not seem to be a big deal, sometimes can be and have a huge impact. I encourage you to continue to give back to your community. Also, I need to thank Marty Mazurkowitz, who's unfortunately in the building in an important meeting, but if he's able to come out, I will certainly point him out. He's a project manager here at the facility, and I can't thank him enough for his commitment into seeing this through by supplying materials and having your grounds crew reinstall these. I need to thank Ian Dama, who's not here. I thought he would be able to come here, but he's not, from Dama Brothers Auto Works, for giving his time and expertise in refinishing the actual plaques to ensure they will continue to look great for a long time to come. Others I'd like to thank are the commission board members for this facility. Will Tatum, thank you. Jason Satelik, our BOCES superintendent, who showed up this morning, thank you. Nick Millis, our building principal, thank you. Chef Amanda Skoka, who's going to afterwards made some wonderful treats for us. So now to get into this a little bit, you might be thinking, why is the name spelled Lassen? Well, the spelling evolved into the current Lassen, Lawson, and into another variation of Lawson, Lossing, around 1800. I had a Dutch native pronounce the Lassen spelling, and she said it exactly like we say Lawson today. I suspect the spelling changed as the English language became more prevalent throughout New York. A short background on one of the first folks who were most likely interred here or buried here are a fellow by the name of Peter Lawson. Obviously not our Peter Lawson who's here today. He, in 1659, at the age of 24, he was from Husson, Schleswig-Holstein, which is now part of Germany, departed for New Netherlands on a ship called the De Verge Beaver. I'm butchering the Dutch names, I apologize for that. But it was translated to the Golden Beaver. He arrived in Beverwyck, which is now Albany, around the 9th of August of that year. He came over as a servant sent by Jan Baptist van Rensselaer to his brother Jeremias van Rensselaer to work for a man named Volker Jans Douw. Peter soon ran away to Connecticut but returned to Douw and learned how to become a brewer. He must have worked off his servitude and gained some prominence because he eventually bought half of a brewery in the village of Beverwyck with another man, and in 1674, Peter was listed as being in attendance for Jeremias van Rensselaer's funeral. Prior to 1679, he had married Katharina Hofmeyer, who was most likely born between 1655 and 1660. Not much is known about her prior to her marriage to Peter. In 1681, he sold half of his brewery for 180 beaver skins, valued at 8 guilders each. That would be equivalent to around $86,400 today. Between the end of 1681 and early 1684, he and Katrina left Albany, where they first settled in Esopus for a short time. Peter worked out as a brewer. 2 of his children were baptized in the Old Dutch Church in Kingston. On May 5th, 1683, a certain Highland Indian named Masani had given as a free gift a farm to Peter Lawson that included a waterfall near the bank of the river to build a mill thereon. The falls called Poughkeepsie and the land called Minising that lies east to the river. In reality, though, this land had already been patented to someone else, so Masani's gift was invalid. However, a patent granted to Colonel Peter Schuyler of Albany in 1688 showed that Peter was well established in Dutchess County by then. The patent mentioned a certain creek that runs into Hudson's River on the north side of a certain house now in possession and occupation of Peter the Brewer, undoubtedly Peter Lassen. And the creek was the Casper Kill, named for Jan Casper Hollenbeck, who was married to the sister of Peter's wife, Katrina. Dutchess County was mostly an unpopulated wilderness at that time by Europeans. So Peter and Katrina's house was a landmark. There were many baptisms done there. Their stone house was torn down in 1911, where the railroad acquired a narrow parcel of land alongside the tracks just south of the Casper Kill and built a water scoop there. Peter and Katrina had 7 to 8 children, and on October 16, 1698, their son William was baptized in the New York Dutch Church. William's obituary, which appeared in the New York Daily Advertiser on August 15th in 1791, contained the statement that he was the firstborn white child in the county of Dutchess. My research indicates that my family descends from this William Lawson. Earlier in 1698, Peter bought more land from Arnott Veal. Problems had been arising over numerous land grants that were given to different individuals, and no one was really checking or keeping track of what was going on. Having a land grant recorded, as was Masani's gift to Peter, was no guarantee of ownership. So in 1704, Peter and Arnott Veal petitioned the governor of the province of New York for a patent on the land. The arguments given in the patent were persuasive, as Peter was described as having great charge of children. And on May 4, 1704, the Lawson patent was issued. Peter thus had his patent confirmed by the English crown, but unfortunately, he did not really have ownership because it was already part of the Rombout and Schuyler patents. Luckily, Peter was allowed to retain at least part of the land he had purchased, although how this was arranged is not known. The burial records for the Lutheran Church of New York City report that on the 7th of February in 1709, Peter Lawson died in his house, old and tired of living, and was buried in his orchard. The spot became the Lawson family burial ground. In 1924, in a 1924 publication, Old Gravestones of Dutchess County, it says this burial ground was used until 1794 or later, and was said to be located near New Hamburg, south of Jan Casper's Kill, and in an orchard that was probably near the site of Peter's house, and presumably contains many unmarked graves, one of which was Peter's. When Peter died, he was about 74 years old. 2 of his oldest children were already married and had children of their own, while his youngest child was only 7. Peter's wife, Katrina, continued to live there, having baptisms until her death in 1731. In Dutchess County's first census, the households in 1714, she's listed as Katrine Lesink Wendell, or a widow, and appears to be the only female on the list. The census lists at that year as 445 souls living in the county. Katrina is most likely buried here as well. Peter and Katrina Lassen are my 9th great-grandparents, which go back 11 generations. I must give credit to most of this information to Donna Ewens of Niagara Falls, who, after retiring as a teacher, did extensive research on Peter Lawson and his descendants. Her research was published in the New York Genealogy and Biographical Records in 1998 through 1999. She died in 2014. You can still find many Lawson headstones in the old Presbyterian Church Cemetery in New Hamburg and the Wappingers Rural Cemetery, as well as throughout Dutchess and Ulster counties and the rest of New York. So I just want to thank you all for coming to this rededication ceremony and acknowledging this important place that is part of some of the earliest of Dutchess County's history. Thank you. And with that, it's So thank you for coming. Please help yourself to some of the